Hey guys, Tomboy601, and today we're looking at the Siegfried. That's right, we have the campaign ship to review. Siegfried, provided to us by the good folks at Wargaming. Just getting that disclosure out of the way. Recently, Wargaming added me to the community contributor program, and that gives me benefits such as the ship. Though, whenever they do provide benefits like this, I do want to be transparent with you guys and let you know when I'm getting something for free. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about our comment of the day. And comment of the day goes out to the Sant309. He says, hope they don't add too much on the Forge, to be honest, since it's too difficult to get steel. And yeah, I'm kind of with you there, the Sant. This is talking about, of course, the new premium currency that's in the game, and steel, which is that premium currency, and how hard it's going to be, it seems, to earn some. I am hopeful, and I predict that there will be easier ways to start earning steel, but it is definitely going to be a currency that you need to chase. Okay, so that's comment of the day out of the way. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Siegfried. And let me just say, it's the Graf Spee grown up. That's what you just need to picture. She's a tier 7 Graf Spee, and as such, just like the Graf Spee, she's a weird little nugget that you're going to enjoy, but she's not going to be great, if that makes sense. I am loving the Siegfried, but I know she's not a good ship. When we start going through the stats, you're going to hear me say a lot, best in the tier or worst at the tier, because she is such a weird, ugly duckling that she has just crazy stats, but unfortunately, they just don't add up to being a great ship. They just add up to being a fun ship. And that's why I went out and bought the Admiralty backing to make sure I end up keeping the ship and earning the ship, because I want a fun cruiser to play at tier 7, and this is the fun cruiser for me. If I just want to have fun and I don't want to take games too seriously, this is going to become my ship of choice. So, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive on into the stats. So Siegfried is the most durable cruiser with a whopping 55,000 HP, and she has some of the thickest armor of any cruiser at a whopping 360 millimeters, with a torpedo reduction of 22%, tying the Azuma for the top of the tier. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the armor view so we understand, though, how she does have some significant shortcomings when it comes to her armor. Okay, so we are here in the armor view, and I think you can pretty much see already what is going to be the compromising factor on the Siegfried. That's going to be that bow and aft armor, both of them 26 millimeters thick, which means you will not be bouncing shells off the front. You will be eating damage constantly on your nose and on your stern, which really compromises her, but it's understandable given just how overpowered she would be if she didn't have this weaker armor on the front. Let's go ahead and get rid of that, and then we can see just the tank that it is in the rest of the armor. First off, torpedo protection, 190 millimeters down below, which conjoins to that 22% torpedo reduction. Up in the superstructure, we do have some lightly armored areas of the superstructure, as we usually see only 16, the weakest armor anywhere, but that's pretty standard for superstructure. The thing, though, is she doesn't have a lot of superstructure that isn't heavily armored. Like, compared to many other ships that would have this thickness of armor, not a lot is there, so it is a relatively small target for that 16 millimeters of armor. We'll go ahead and get rid of that, and now let's go ahead and look at that casemate, and yeah, this is where it gets thick. Up to 100 millimeters, 190 millimeters in the armor belt. Deck at the top is 30 millimeters. This may come back to haunt her if we start to get higher tier aircraft carriers. We don't know what armor penetrating bombs are going to do quite yet, but we can already start to see that casemate armor down below, and the turtleback. It is it's a beefy ship. So we'll go ahead, get rid of all of this, and then look at the turrets. Turrets, 320 millimeters of armor, some of the thickest on the ship, and going to be very hard to penetrate. And last is going to be that citadel area just below the waterline with a little bit peeking up. Still vulnerable, but she has a lot of armor protecting her vital areas, making her a very durable ship in her important parts, but she is going to consistently take damage from shells just because of her weak bow and stern armor. Next up, we have her main battery, and these are very interesting and very special. She does have the lowest number of guns of any cruiser, but she does make up for it with size. She has 3 2-barrel turrets with a caliber of 380 millimeters. And if that sounds familiar, that's because these are the same guns that are on the Bismarck and are on Gneisenau. That's right, you have full-fledged battleship guns on a cruiser. Once again, the Graf Spee incarnate in tier 7. That is what Siegfried is. Firing range on those cannons, 16.2 kilometers, a staggering longest range of any cruiser. But then here comes where the pain is. Reload time, 26 seconds, meaning you're only going to give out 14 shells per minute on average. 180 time, 36 seconds, second worst at the tier. HE 4400, which is one of the highest things, but because of that slow reload time, you're only looking at 61,600 damage per minute. And that's the problem with the Siegfried, is she is the lowest damage per minute cruiser for tier 7s. Bright side, she does have a 34% chance to set fire with each shell. AP damage, she does have the highest AP damage per shell, 11,600, but once again, that slow fire rate lets her down. She has the second lowest damage per minute for AP damage at 162,400. Moving on to secondaries, with her being a German ship, you would expect exemplary secondaries, but she doesn't really have much. 7 2-barrel 128 millimeter guns with firing range of 5 kilometers like every other cruiser at the tier. Reload time fairly quick, 3.6 seconds, doing a 1,500 damage per hit and a 5% chance to set fire. Moving on, she does have 2 4-barrel torpedo launchers with a reload time of 90 seconds, damaging at 13,700, the standard German torpedoes at the tier. Detectability range on those, 1.3 seconds, and torp speed highest at the tier at 65 knots, though fairly short range torps at only 6 kilometers, meaning her torps tell you to be a brawler and to be up close, but her guns tell you to be far away. So she really, once again, sending mixed messages. Finally, let's move on to her maneuverability. Max speed 33.5 knots, turning radius second worst at the tier at 880 meters, with a slowest at the tier rudder shift speed of 14 seconds. Finally, we have detectability. Detectability by seafarer is going to be 13 kilometers, by air 8.2, and then detectability in smoke 12.5, which, let's be honest, we're not very surprised by that. She's firing battleship guns. She's not going to be hiding in smoke, okay? So 12.5 kilometers on smoke detectability. Next, let's go ahead and talk about her consumables. Just as a note, I do have loot gins assigned to her, so she is going to have an extra charge of each of the consumables, just because I do have fully packed enabled. She, of course, has damage control party. Duration is going to be 5 seconds with a reload time of 60 seconds. Next, she does have that good old German sonar. Detectability of torpedoes, 3.8 kilometers, of ships at 5.6 kilometers. Duration, 118 seconds with a reload time of 180 seconds. And she does have 3 charges. She does have access to a catapult fighter. It's going to be up for the new cruiser duration of 100 seconds. It's going to have a reload time of 80 seconds, and she is going to have 4 charges. And her last consumable, she does have a repair party, 330 HP per second with a 28-second duration. It reloads in about 1 minute, and she has 3 charges. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the mods available to her. In the first slot, I have aiming system modification 1. Dispersion of main battery is decreased by 7%. Torpedo launcher traverse speed is increased by 20%. Secondary battery firing range is increased by 5%, and dispersion of those batteries is decreased by 5%. Next, in mod slot 2, I have steering gear, reduces the rudder shift time, trying to get that rudder shift time down to as small as possible because of just how atrocious it is. Rudder shift time with steering gear mod 2 reduced by 20%. In the third mod slot, I have steering gear mod 3, once again reducing that rudder shift time a further 40%, and the steering gear repair time is decreased by 80%. And finally, we have the fourth mod slot, and I have main battery mod 3 equipped, where she has main battery reload time, and it is decreased by 12%, though it does increase the traverse speed by 13%. Let's go ahead and talk about the commanders I recommend. Now, if you have the Azur Lane Graf Spee commander, oh my goodness, is she perfect for this. And now the next time she comes up, I may have to try to get her because of just how perfect she is for this ship. Sadly, though, I don't have her, so instead I'm going to talk about the Lutkins build that I am currently using. So he does have that base trait of increasing the AP damage of your cruiser. His inspirations that I'm using, I've been playing around, but the ones I think I've settled on is going to be Yamamoto, which increases the penetration multiplier. So just making sure we can really penetrate any sort of ship we come up against, or at least help ourselves against some of that battleship armor that we are sure to come in contact with at tier 7. And then Madden, just trying to decrease that penalty from taking the main battery modification. So we are going to help ourselves by increasing the traverse speed and also decreasing that horrid reload time, just trying to get a little bit more damage per minute out of this ship, because it's going to need every little bit that it can take. Let's go ahead and talk about the skills. First one we are using is Ingenious. If you're not using Ingenious, it's like cutting off a limb or taking away one of your senses. It is such an important thing for cruiser play, just because you need to know when people are looking at you and when people are about to attack you, and that's why I absolutely love Ingenious and recommend it all the time. Next, I have Full Speed Ahead, which increases the maximum speed of your cruiser and enhances the rudder shift speed of all. Then I have Sponge, which is decreasing the incoming damage and adding to the HP of guns, giving it a less chance to be destroyed, as well as decreasing the repair time if those guns do get knocked out. Finally, we have Steering Clear, and that's going to improve the ship steering as well as reducing the steering gear repair time. And the last thing that we mentioned before that we do have is Fully Packed, just to get those extra charges, to get that extra utility, because you can never have enough catapult fighters, enough heals, and enough sonar. So with those mods and that commander, we have modified the ship significantly. So let's go ahead and highlight a couple of key stats that have been changed. Reload time now down to 22.3 seconds, giving us a rounds per minute of 16. Also, with some of those mods and Madden, we've reduced the 180 time on those guns to 28.5 seconds. But the biggest improvement in this build is, of course, going to be that rudder shift time. We have, I think, 3 different skills acting on it, and we've reduced it down to 5.5 seconds, a ridiculously quicker rudder shift time, and one that makes Siegfried feel surprisingly nimble for how large of a ship that she is. So that is all of the stats. The next section is where I would usually talk about the history of the ship. Unfortunately, Siegfried is a paper ship, and by that I mean she wasn't built, so I don't have a ton of information on her. Basically, she was originally designed as a P-class battlecruiser, meant to be the follow-up to the Deutschland class, of course that being of the Graf Spee, but during the development of the P-class cruisers, someone had the bright idea of putting on essentially the Bismarck's cannons onto her, and she was upgraded to a O-class battlecruiser. Unfortunately, even though the plans for her were at the beginning part of the war, by the time shipyards had cleared enough space to begin manufacturing her, certain things like materials were just not in the amount and supplies that the Kriegsmarine needed in order to produce such a ship. So sadly, she was never produced. There is only full drawings of her, and that's all we have. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at a game in the Siegfried. Now, you may notice something that I did not notice at the beginning of this game. So right as this game was loading in, I actually had a crash, and the game kicked me out and crashed on my Series X. And then I was able to load back in before it really got going. but you may notice something that is going to surprise me if you look at the kind of ammo that is now loaded. For some reason, when the game crashed, it decided that it would be a good idea to take out all of my ammo preferences, so we have HE loaded. I am completely unaware of that right now, and it will be a massive disappointment once I start seeing enemies. Anyways, we're going to go head to B, try to tuck ourselves in between those two teeth, take cover, and see if we can capture B. It should give us some decent crossfires on C. Hipper pops up right there, and we're like, oh, he's broadside. We're going to go ahead and fire HE. Yeah, see, that's when I noticed. I was like, oh no, I need AP. He's broadside. He was there for a delicious salvo, and we just served him up some whipped cream because we couldn't do any damage. First off, there we go. We're starting to take that damage that we were talking about earlier about how lightly armored the front and rear of the ship is. So we're going to go ahead and let off that next salvo. Once again, those long reload times. Hipper, we fire, and we hit the Citadel. 13,000 damage down the drain. He is hurting, and he needs to start running away. Good job right here. And that's what the Siegfried does. She makes big shots. Torpedoes coming in, lots of them. And with that many torpedoes, that means it is most likely an American destroyer. There he is, Fletcher, and he has a long torpedo reload time. So we know we're relatively safe making our way around this island because he won't be able to pop up instantly again and torp us like if he was a Udachi. So we're going to take this opportunity, hide on in there, get a good shot on the Bismarck there, up another 6,000, not able to make another shot, but we're going to go ahead and tuck in here because it looks like a majority of the enemy is going to start pushing into C, and we should have a decent crossfire. Siegfried needing to be played sort of like a hybrid battleship cruiser, and that's just what we're doing. Massachusetts sitting out there in the open, and he seems to be scheming full speed ahead, and let's go ahead and let him. He doesn't even notice us here. I think he's just trying to take avoiding action on those torpedoes, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to let him, and we're going to take a Citadel chunk out of him. Another 13k damage. Looking beautiful. Massachusetts also gets hit by those torpedoes. He does have really good torpedo reduction, so it's not the end of the game for him, but we're going to go ahead, get our rear gun swung around. Forward gun's already locked onto Mass, and he is still pushing forward, so we should be able to get some decent shots on him. Dispersion here, doing decently, some solid shots there. We're making a difference. Now, one of the things that we do notice with the Siegfried is at longer ranges, she still does have German battleship guns, and that means her dispersion can get a little wonky. It isn't too bad. It definitely feels better than the Gneisenau or the Bismarck, but it is still something to keep in mind. I think Norm Scott would also be an excellent inspiration for Lutkins just to help rein in that dispersion, but I was feeling Yamamoto and Madden just a little bit more. Gneisenau now pushing in to C, and we are going to just go ahead and let some shells fly his way. If he's going to give us that broadside, we might as well take advantage. We are spotted by the Fletcher over there. He most likely has that increased RGA. Wide torp spread from that reset and crash earlier. We're just going to kind of try to keep an eye on him, see if he wants to be brave. He lets those torpedoes go, and at this point, I'm like, you know what? He has an extremely long reload ahead of him. He's exposed. We don't really have much fire that can potentially hurt us if we go around the right side of this island. And it seems that those other ships are going to be nesting doll and staying right around those islands. So let's go ahead, reposition, load HE, and see if we can go ahead and hunt down this Fletcher. Yes, we don't have great HE shells, and we have a slow rate of fire, but he is exposed, and he shouldn't have torpedoes up for quite a while after he let go of that salvo. We give the friendly cruiser bump to our teammate there, hold our fire through this gap. If we were in a faster fighting cruiser, maybe we would have tried to fire through that gap and gotten a few cheeky hits on the Fletcher, but because of our slow reload time, once again, we are holding until we think we have the best shot. We let go, and we hit once or twice there. 1,300 damage, not the worst, and we go ahead and incapacitate a couple of things, but not the grand salvo we were hoping for. Now it's about chasing him down. He is firing, so he's going to stay spotted for a little bit while longer, and we may just be able to co-op this smoke from him, throw it down to a lower gear, fire away, and no damage. He lucks out here. The modules take all of the damage. We are trying to slow down to maybe stay hidden in the smoke. We do have that atrocious smoke fire penalty, so we really shouldn't have been trying to hide in the smoke. But like, when there's free American smoke, you're gonna go ahead and take it. Next, we see that gaggle of enemies that were kind of all clustering. We take a Citadel hit, by the way, right there, and it's a big one. We're a broadside, and we deserved that. But that gaggle of enemies who was off clustering is now making a push for C. I think they see the way the game is going. They have not captured a single point, and they are about to lose. York, lowest HP, and of course, he's a cruiser, so he's going to most likely have the highest damage per minute, or at least the highest damage of shells coming out. So we're going to go ahead and try to prioritize targeting him, just because if we can take him off the board, it's going to be a significantly less amount of damage that this team is able to do. So we're going to go ahead and try to focus fire on the York. Meanwhile, while we're taking these long reloads, we have the torpedoes, so we might as well shop around and see if anyone's in range. Gneisenau looking surprisingly close, so we're going to go ahead and line up those torps right on the marker, because if we look, his guns weren't aimed at us. He doesn't really know that we're over here. One person is targeting us currently. It is a Cleveland, so we want to try to get behind this island. Also, Gneisenau guns now opening up on us. That is the secondary, so we're going to take as much cover as we can behind this island, just because we don't have the ability to really return fire to him. He's closing in on us, but our secondaries really aren't going to match up to his, and we have that long reload. Of course, our guns come off of reload, we fire, and those torps look like they're good. 1, 2, 3 hits, and he is out of there. We've taken off the Gneisenau, and now it's time for the Bismarck. That 3-ship push is now down to 1. We do have a battleship hugging the island on the other side who is proxy spotting us, so that is a little bit dangerous for us. But this Bismarck seems to be fully engaged with our team, whether that be the destroyer or our 2 battleships that are pushing into him. Either way, he's opening up to broadside for us, and we will take these beautiful broadside shots. Damage up to over 100 grand, and that is what we like to see. We're just going to go ahead and sit here until that Bismarck either off angles from us or he is gone. We start taking damage from the Cleveland, and shout out to that Cleveland player, because he is playing very smart. He's targeting us when he's about to fire, so that our ingenious perk doesn't proc the whole time. It just procs when he's firing, meaning that if we're not always watching that spotting indicator, we may not see that we have shells incoming, and that definitely plays to his advantage. We're going to try to go ahead and hug this island a little bit closer and hopefully hope that those shells aren't able to arc over. It is a Cleveland, so the chances of that are fairly low. Bismarck is down, and now we see the King George. He's within torp range, and it's time, as the kids say, to YOLO. We have the ship advantage. Well, we just lost one war, but we still have the ship advantage, and we're just going to do a reckless charge here. We've kind of won the day as far as ships go. Decent damage there from our main guns, 9k. We don't really have the health to take on any more ships, so we might as well distract the King George and let our ships get a little bit closer, because we could either hide behind that rock and maybe get a couple more shots off, but the King George would keep reversing. At least this way, we can pressure him to moving forward. He goes ahead and takes us out, and our torpedoes are on the way. Sadly, they don't make contact. We just didn't aim quite right, but hey, decent game in the Siegfried. 118,000. Like I said at the beginning of this review, Siegfried, she's a fun ship. She's not a great ship. I really enjoy playing her, but I don't think she's the greatest ship of all time. But I'm going to continue playing with her because she is fun. And yeah, guys, that's the Siegfried. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. If you liked the video, go ahead, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Also follow me on my other social medias. That's a Twitter, that's Instagram, that's Twitch, live streaming every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. All of that down in the comments below, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See ya.